You're listening to Bad Girlfriend Radio. I'm your host, Bree Schmidt. I'm a relationship coach and educator offering advice and insight that is no shame, no sugarcoat, and no BS. Today, I am talking about mind games in dating and in romantic relationships. And when I say mind games, I mean those games that play with your head, keeping you confused. Or maybe you're the one playing mind games. And to that, I am telling you now, stop playing games. I will talk about some of the most common mind games that people play, why they do it, and how to deal. If you want to stop playing or getting played, keep on listening. First, before we get started, I have some exciting news to share. I am ready to start coaching you and ready to help you bust through all the blocks that are keeping you stuck in your love life. Email coaching has launched. And what this is it's a 1-month package of unlimited coaching, all through email. It is super flexible, and you can send me as many emails as you want with questions or anything on your mind, anything that you're struggling with, and I will respond within 24 hours, which is huge. You're getting so much coaching time, so much value, and you can work with me completely at your own pace. Plus, you'll get worksheets and other downloadable resources that are exclusive for my coaching clients. So again, this is email-only coaching. It is super private, super flexible, and all without the expensive premium price tag. This coaching is perfect for anyone who is feeling stuck in their love lives, whether that be that you're single and wanting to date, or maybe you're wanting to start working on improving your self-love, your confidence, your relationship with yourself before you start dating, or even if you are already in a relationship and maybe you're dealing with the same fight over and over with your partner, or you're experiencing some doubts or anxieties in your relationship. No matter what your concern is, this coaching is all about you. It is completely focused on your needs, and we'll work together to come up with action steps that are specifically for you. This is not one size fits all. So if you're interested in finding out more and starting email coaching with me, go to breeschmidt.com/email coaching. That is with hyphens, so e-mail-coaching. breeschmidt.com/email coaching. This link is also in the show description, or you can go to breeschmidt.com/work with me. Again, that has hyphens between each word, so breeschmidt.com/work-with-me. And you can keep watching there for one-on-one video coaching, which will also be launching very soon. So if you're more into doing deep coaching with quick results, then stay tuned for the launch of one-on-one video coaching, where you can work with me in live video call sessions. I will be offering single sessions, 1-month packages, and 3-month packages. So stay tuned for that. If you email me at contact@breeschmidt.com, I can put you on the wait list for the video coaching when that launches, so that you will be the first to have access. But if you're not so patient and you don't want to wait, then you can get started right now with email coaching. So again, go to this episode's description, and in those show notes, you'll find the links for all of this, all right? Now let's hop into today's discussion. Stop playing mind games in your relationship, okay? This episode will help you, whether you are the game player or you are the one being played and getting roped into someone else's game. Just stop. I want to help you. We got to stop this. And for today's episode, by the way, when I'm talking about mind games and psychological games, what I really mean by games, I basically mean any behaviors where there is a dishonest intention, where someone is being inauthentic as a strategy to get what they want, or to maybe protect themselves in some way. And there might be some other motives too for why they do this, which we will talk about later towards the end of the episode. But that's basically the gist of what I mean and what I'm going to be covering today. And the thing about these mind games is that I'm so sick of them. I'm so tired of them. I'm telling you today, we got to stop playing mind games. They're so counterproductive if you want to have a healthy relationship. But despite me saying all of this, these mind games are really, really deeply ingrained in our dating culture that a lot of us have probably been exposed to like our entire lives. I mean, I think I was actually playing mind games with boys when I was like 7 years old, like back in first grade of elementary school. And I really think that I was at least a little bit aware of these kind of games from watching like romantic comedies and TV shows and things like that. But on the other hand, too, I was only 7 years old. And so, I was 7 years old playing like Hard to Get, right? Which is also a mind game that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. But I was playing Hard to Get, and it's not like as a 7-year-old, I was at an age where I had any level of sophisticated thinking, really. So while I may have learned these kind of mind games from media and things like that, and kind of from the culture, it was also somewhat natural too, especially with something like playing Hard to Get. I just had a crush on a boy, but I didn't want him to reject me. So these mind games can be very intentional and thought out, but on the other hand, too, sometimes it can kind of be a mechanism to try to get what we want or to keep ourselves protected without even really being aware of what we're doing or that we're playing a game. And the reason I bring up my 7-year-old self is because some of us, or maybe someone that you know, someone that you've dated, may still, as an adult, fall back on these kind of mind games, not actually trying to hurt the other person, but really just because they are scared. They're scared of rejection, or they're not comfortable being honest for one reason or another. And they don't really have that self-awareness to see what they're doing, kind of like when I was a 7-year-old. So if you've been playing any of these games, I'm not here to shame you, because like I said, these games are very deeply rooted in our dating culture. We have been exposed to them since we were kids watching rom-coms, right? And the thing that I can never understand in our dating culture, at least in the US where I'm from, is that there is actually shame in being honest and direct. So in some ways, actually holding back and not being honest about your interest in someone is normalized. And if you don't hold back, if you don't play mind games, if you don't play Hard to Get, you seem desperate, right? So playing games is actually just part of dating. And if you skip over the mind games, then the dating culture kind of says that you're not really doing it right. And I don't agree with that. And eventually relationships will require honesty. And in order to start a relationship, somebody has to come forward and say, hey, I'm into you, right? They have to start to be honest about their feelings. So it is not sustainable to play games. And a relationship that is full of mind games and confusion is, in many cases, a toxic relationship, or maybe a relationship with a lot of conflict. But when you're just getting to know someone, and in the very beginning stages of dating, I have to say it is possible to not play games, but still hold back a little bit to make the other person comfortable. There's a distinction in playing games to make yourself more comfortable, or holding back just a little bit to make the other person more comfortable. What I mean is, if someone comes off too strong while the other person is clearly taking things more slowly, then that person who likes moving more slowly will probably feel pretty uncomfortable. And this actually relates to love bombing, which we'll talk about later in the episode. But I just wanted to make that distinction because I hear women talking about this all the time, that a guy is moving way too quickly, and then like the women actually are getting scared off by it. And it can go the other way too. I think, men can also feel this way as well. And so in this case, I'm not saying to play games. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that it's important to gauge the other person and match their pace if their pace is slower. Or if they're a bit more shy or reserved at first, then just maybe tone it down a bit until they get to know you better and until they can trust you more. So again, this is not the same as playing mind games. This is actually just having compassion for the other person and how they're feeling. All right? So then what are mind games? What are some examples of common mind games that should be avoided? So the first one that I already mentioned before a bit is playing Hard to Get. Playing Hard to Get is the exact opposite of being easy. And just being easy in itself has pretty bad connotations, right? But let's be real, women can't be easy or difficult. We can't be anything, but we're almost always labeled as either one or the other. I think it's ridiculous. But anyway, playing hard to get basically looks like holding back in order to make it seem harder to date you, to make the other person work harder to get you, to make you seem more valuable. And the expectation is that when someone plays hard to get, then the other person will have to put all this effort into trying to date them, right? Or this could even extend to relationships that are already established relationships, not only dating, but you're already together. And if you kind of play hard to get sometimes, then maybe you're kind of making the other partner work harder in the relationship to keep connected with you. And in that way, it can be pretty manipulative, actually, right? So even though this kind of behavior is seen as being super normal, especially in dating, playing hard to get is seen as super normal, it can actually be quite unhealthy and even kind of toxic. So some common examples of playing hard to get might be that you are purposely waiting to message back just to make yourself seem busy or unavailable. Or maybe you're reading someone's message and then you're just leaving it on read and you're not responding. Or maybe you're letting the other person initiate the dates. You're not going to initiate that second date. You're going to make them do it, right? So the other person has to jump through these hoops and prove their interest, while the person playing hard to get just kind of gets to sit back and relax, not really showing any interest at all, and avoiding being vulnerable. You want to know a sign that you may have found a good match? You want to know a sign that maybe you found like the one? You can be honest with them. No playing hard to get, no playing games, and nothing bad happens. Can you imagine messaging back right away, requesting another date whenever you want one, no holding back, and then they're actually doing the exact same thing too? You are both being honest and upfront and sharing your mutual interest in each other. That is how relationships start. That's it. I actually think that by not playing hard to get, it's a kind of a quick way to like weed out the bad matches, because if you can be honest that you're interested in someone and make yourself available and they don't take advantage of it, they're not scared off by it either. They're not saying like, oh, she's way too desperate, but they're actually just mutually interested. They're also like, well, hey, I'm available too. Like, let's hang out tomorrow then, or whatever it is. It's actually a really great way to weed out the people who are used to playing these games, and you can just find the people who are genuinely interested in each other. So it's actually a really quick way to just kind of, find the right person when you're dating. Really similar to playing hard to get is just sending mixed messages, mixed signals. So it's like they're interested one day and then they're not, and then they're interested again, and then maybe they're not texting back, and oh, hey, here they popped up again. Oh, wait, now they're not available to meet up anytime soon. What is going on, right? Kind of like playing hard to get, the assumption is that one person plays hard to get and then the other person will have to do extra work to get things going, right? And I think with sending mixed signals, it also kind of leaves the other person so confused that eventually they have to try harder. Like they break. That's kind of what happens. They're so confused from the mixed signals that they just break. And then chances are they just ask the person directly, what is happening? What do you want? Are you into me? And then that person in that position at that point of breaking, they feel so powerless, manipulated, confused. I mean, do you really want to start a relationship with one person feeling like that? Does that really seem like a healthy start to a new relationship? Sending mixed signals can also happen in an established relationship too, especially when one person becomes unsure of how they feel of the relationship. They may start to go hot and cold, which is oftentimes a reflection of their actual feelings and thoughts about the relationship. So on one hand, they can see the positives. Maybe they do want to stay in the relationship, but then on the other hand, they're having these doubts. And this could be common in people with an avoidant attachment style, or in even some cases, an anxious attachment style. And it can also happen as a relationship maybe experiences some changes and goes through some challenges. And maybe one partner then is having a hard time with navigating those changes. So they kind of go hot and cold. We're not often taught that it's okay to communicate our doubts and worries. We are taught to decide what to do about a struggling relationship by ourselves, independently. Or maybe we go and we consult friends about what they would do and we try to get their advice. And this is where the mixed signals start to come in, because we're trying to hide the fact that we're having these doubts in the relationship. We're trying to hide that from the person who deserves to know that the most. And then the other person, they start to see these mixed signals and confusing hot and cold behavior, and then they may get worried or confused. So what if, instead of playing games, what if you actually just say what you're thinking? What if you actually say that you're kind of worried about the future of your relationship? What if you actually say that you're worried that, you're going to break up, that you should break up? I mean, it might sound radical, but it's actually much more practical than playing mind games. Another mind game that is similar to sending mixed signals is using the silent treatment. So when you're upset, you go silent. And you stop talking to the other person in order to make some kind of point about how upset you are. So like the other examples I've talked about, the silent treatment can be kind of manipulative because it's a behavior that is done with an expectation of how the other person should respond. So one person goes silent, and then the expectation is that the other person will try harder and harder to get them to open up. One person is silent, and then the other person starts talking themselves in circles, apologizing or whatever it may be, to try to get the other person to start talking again. And the crazy thing is that the silent treatment involves one person being quiet when they have the most to say. So they have so much to communicate because they are so upset. And often in this situation, probably what is happening is that they have some needs that are not being met. Then they pull away and stop talking. So they have so much to communicate, and they're not communicating it at all because they are literally going totally quiet, totally silent. And usually the silent treatment comes after a huge explosive fight. And then chances are in that fight, they probably didn't even effectively communicate what they're really feeling or what they really want, what they need. So if they pull away after and then they just go completely silent, they never even gave the other person a chance to really hear what they need. So the silent treatment is a mind game in the sense that it can be used to manipulate the other person into trying harder and harder, but it also kind of creates a guessing game where the other person has to try to guess why the silent one is upset. Does that make sense? It kind of makes sense, but is this a good way to work through a conflict? Not at all. Going back to the beginning of relationships and dating, I want to talk about a mind game that is used when you're just getting to know each other, and it's called love bombing. Have you heard of this before? Love bombing is when one person showers the other person with affection and love, but it's all inauthentic. There is a possibility that the person really is actually interested in the other person, but they lack the self-awareness to realize that they're just getting really caught up in infatuation. And sometimes love bombing is done by someone who knows that they have no plans of dating the other person in the future, but they're making it seem like they're really into them. I actually talked about this before in another episode about a guy that I very briefly dated here in Japan when I was still pretty new to living in Tokyo, and this was back before I met my husband. And this other guy, he was very, very quick to invite me to meet his mom, even though his mom was all the way in China. And on top of that, he didn't even really take much time to actually try to get to know me. He didn't really ask any questions about me. Yet he was so eager to offer big romantic gestures. But just like meeting his mom in China, it was something that I think it was really easy for him to say, and it sounded really nice, like he was really serious, really into me, wanting to marry me. But it's something that he couldn't actually follow through with because, after all, why would we hop on a plane and go to China? So the whole thing just seemed really inauthentic and dishonest. And that is exactly how love bombing feels. It's way too much affection, just showering someone with love way too quickly when it doesn't even make sense, when there's no way that you possibly actually know them well enough to have those kind of feelings. So again, it could be that they are intentionally just trying to impress you and make you believe that they're really committed to you, or that they will be committed to you. Or it could be a situation where they actually are caught up in their own feelings of excitement and infatuation. Either way, though, love bombing is something that is not sustainable, and it's not real. It's not real love, you know? Almost the opposite of love bombing is breadcrumbing, where the person is giving just enough little breadcrumbs to keep the other person hooked, but the other person wants more and they deserve more. The breadcrumber usually offers very little and makes the other person wait around before ever confirming plans. Many plans aren't ever even made, or they're canceled before they can ever even happen. So they really just offer the bare minimum to keep someone around, even if they don't want to or aren't able to have a committed relationship. So by breadcrumbing, they can keep the other person interested and keep them coming back, keep them messaging or whatever it might be, but they don't really offer much. And then the other person who isn't getting their needs met by these breadcrumbs may start to feel needy and insecure. And really, they'd be better off with someone who can give them the time and attention that they're craving. So someone who is breadcrumbing oftentimes gives them no real attention, no real time. They can't really make any commitments, but yet they're doing just enough to keep the other person around. So it's a total mind game, and it's also, like you're probably seeing a theme by now, it's kind of manipulative, right? Next up, I want to talk about gaslighting. Gaslighting can be an extremely toxic and manipulative behavior, no doubt about it. So this is where the gaslighter essentially tries to convince the other person that they're crazy. They win power by making the other person question themselves. The gaslighter may deny that something ever happened or that they ever said something that the other person 100% knows happened, or they know that the gaslighter said. The gaslighter may accuse the other person of doing something that they never did, or the gaslighter may even accuse the other person of doing the same dishonest actions that the gaslighter is actually doing. So they're kind of projecting what they're doing, projecting it onto the other person and accusing the other person of doing it. They will probably create a web of lies, but then they will tell you that everyone else is lying, not them. These lies can even be small lies, but they use these lies to convince you that you're crazy or that your memory is bad, or maybe they tell you that you're just not listening. You're not listening well enough, so that's why you don't remember things. So once you believe a small lie, the next time maybe they tell a bigger lie, and then you actually start to believe the bigger lies too, and then you start to tell yourself, okay, yeah, maybe I don't listen well, or maybe I really do have memory problems. But really, what's actually happening here is a very, very toxic mind game. I have a couple more examples that I want to get to. The next one being catfishing. So catfishing, you probably already know, is where one person pretends to be someone that they're not, especially in online dating. This is something that a lot of people worry about. A lot of people worry in online dating if the person who they're talking to is actually who they say that they are. So using fake photos, or even using old photos that look very different from how the person currently looks, right? Like leading the other person to believe that they look different than how they really look, or that they're younger. Or it could be just having a completely fake online persona with a fake name, fake photos, fake profile. Everything is fake. That is catfishing. Now, we live in a world today where people do actually date online. Right now, with people still social distancing, some people may be establishing actual relationships just online without meeting in person. Even if you don't establish an official committed relationship online, but you get hooked, you're getting really interested in someone and you're dreaming of meeting up in person, and you're getting your hopes up over someone who is actually a catfish. That's getting caught up in a mind game. Being catfished, it sounds a bit funny when I say it, but it can actually be really painful for someone to learn that they fell in love with someone who was just fake, someone who never existed. And the last mind game that I want to talk about is making empty threats. Specifically, I mean threatening to break up when the person has no intention of actually breaking up. In fact, they may make these threats to try to get closer to the other person. I'm going to admit something that I'm not proud of, but In a past relationship, I did this repeatedly. Speaking from personal experience, I felt very ignored in my relationship. I felt that my needs for security and connection were mostly just ignored, and I could not at that time understand why my ex was so cold with me. I really wanted connection and affection and love, but honestly, I spent a lot of time feeling like I was kind of just dating dead weight. Like I was talking to a wall, like I was begging a rock for love. Like, I mean, honestly, I felt ridiculous and I felt desperate. So when I was especially upset, I would sometimes say that I thought that we should break up. Really, I actually wanted more love, more substance in our relationship, more warmth. But what I was saying, what was coming out of my mouth was, hey, let's end this, let's break up. And deep down, I actually wanted him to respond more to me, and talking to him any other way, it didn't really seem effective. So I think when I felt the most desperate, I would just turn to these empty threats of breaking up. And the thing is, actually, part of me did mean it when I said that we should break up. I think there was part of me that did want to break up that just felt so ignored, like I said, and felt so unhappy. But I wasn't actually ready to break up. I didn't really have the strength to break up. I didn't really have a plan for how we were actually going to do it. So they were kind of empty threats, really. And I look back on it and I can absolutely 100% see the mistake that I was making. I can see that it was a mind game. And I can also understand why I made that mistake, though. And I can have some compassion for myself and for the position that I was in at that time and how I reacted. And so whether you're the one playing these mind games like I was, or you're on the receiving end of them, I want to talk next about why people play these games. Let's stop here for a quick ad break. If you've made regular reading a goal before but just couldn't get in the habit, try Kindle Unlimited. I use the Kindle app on my phone, and with Kindle Unlimited, I basically have a full library at my fingertips anytime. Because there are so many different books to read on Kindle Unlimited, I have actually turned into a speed reader. I am finishing books left and right. And I try to be really mindful of how I spend my time. So when I catch myself on social media too much or just sitting on my sofa being lazy for too long, I can just open the Kindle app and get to reading. With Kindle Unlimited, there are over 1 million titles to choose from, plus magazines and audiobooks too, and you can have them sent straight to your device immediately. Start a free trial for Kindle Unlimited now using the link in this episode's show description. So under this episode's information, just click the link and try your first month for free. So I may have quickly touched already on some of the reasons why people play mind games, why they behave dishonestly, but I wanted to talk about some common reasons for a lot of these mind games that I've talked about. So one big reason why people might play mind games is that they are afraid of being rejected. They have a fear of rejection. A lot of these games make the person who is playing the mind game look and feel more powerful and more valuable to the other person, especially with something like playing hard to get or sending mixed signals during the beginning stages of dating. These people can put themselves in a position of power and try to make the other person work harder. But the truth is, the other person does also have the power and the right to say no. They do actually have the power to reject the other person anyway. But playing these games kind of softens the blow. Also, if we purposely guard ourselves and we aren't really clear about how we're feeling, we're not really direct that we want to be with the other person, then if we are rejected, then we can kind of just blame it on the fact that they never really got to know us, because we didn't let them get to know us. So it kind of helps you to feel like you're in control and you have power, and you can kind of buffer that rejection. Some of these games really rely on being vague and indirect, and that might also make sense for someone who actually just simply doesn't know what they want. They're not sure yet, so they send these confusing signals to keep the other person around, but without having to make any promises that they can't keep. So there may be a fear of commitment. And as humans, as social creatures, most of us do want comfort and connection from others, but some people may find that when it's time to actually commit to someone, they can't follow through. So initially, there may have been some truth in their interest in the other person, they may have wanted some kind of connection, some kind of, relationship, even if it wasn't like a committed relationship. But if they suddenly pull back or start breadcrumbing or, playing other mind games, it may be that they're at that point coming to the realization that they can't be open and vulnerable and available for commitment after all. I already mentioned that mind games help the player feel in control, and wanting control so badly that you are willing to manipulate others is definitely part of playing these games for some people, right? A lot of the behaviors that I talked about are manipulative, but I feel like just immediately pointing to wanting to manipulate others as the reason for these behaviors is kind of reaching for the lowest hanging fruit. So I'm not defending any of these behaviors by any means, but what I'm saying is even when they are manipulative, for most people, even if they engage in these manipulative behaviors, they're not narcissists, they're not psychopaths. I mean, for most people, they're not drawn to manipulation just for the sake of being manipulative. But sometimes people do turn to manipulation in order to hurt or control the other person. It does happen. And oftentimes it's so that the other person will do what they want them to do. Maybe they want the other person to give them more attention. Or it could be that they feel hurt or they feel powerless, and so they're trying to regain back some control and power by manipulating the other person, right? So it does happen. But I'm a little bit cautious in saying that people who engage in these kind of mind games are just always a narcissist or they want to manipulate you, they're evil. In most cases, it's not that simple, and there's a reason why they would want to manipulate you in the first place. Another reason, too, why people might play mind games is to win something, especially for people who are really into hooking up. I think this is an example of how toxic masculinity and toxic gender norms can have some really negative effects when it comes to dating and relationships, because there's this culture that sees someone else as being a prize to win, whether it be winning them by getting their number or winning them by getting them to swipe right on you on a dating app or winning them by getting them to have sex with you. This kind of culture is completely toxic. People are people, not objects to win. So if you're just trying to win someone, but you don't want to be too obvious about it, then you might play some of these mind games to try to lure the other person in. But like I said, I don't really think that this is actually a reason behind why most people play these games, just to manipulate people, just to be kind of evil. But it does happen. It does happen sometimes. And people who do treat hooking up or dating as like a challenge to win something or win someone may feel pressure to prove their status. Like I said, this is absolutely part of toxic masculinity. So for some men, this may be the way that they actually prove their manhood to other guys. It could also be that winning someone over, winning their attention, winning their affection, whatever it may be, gives them a feeling of being valuable. So if they struggle with self-worth and self-esteem, then they may turn to manipulative behaviors to win someone else over and get them to do what they want in order to feel better about themselves. If someone is roping you into one of these mind games, it is not your fault. They are called mind games for a reason. They are very psychologically confusing and dishonest, and that's why healthy relationships don't need games. Anyone who you have to play mind tricks with just to get their attention is probably not someone who you can have a sustainable relationship with anyway, unless you start changing your ways. So be direct, be clear. If that makes you uncomfortable, then that might be even more reason to start now. Start practicing being more vulnerable and honest and real. If you're still feeling stuck playing mind games, send me a message, tell me which one you're dealing with, and I would be happy to help you. You can DM me on Instagram. I am at Bree_Schmidt. Or you can email me at contact@breeschmidt.com. And by the way, the links for all of this that I've mentioned today and the links to get started with one-on-one relationship coaching with me, all of those links that I mentioned earlier are in this episode's show description. Or you can go visit breeschmidt.com. Thanks for listening, as always, Bad Girlfriend, and I hope that you are ready to retire some of those mind games starting now. All right, until next time.